Hello everyone, welcome to the tutorial of JavaScript course. So this course was designed for everyone that interested in JavaScript, and particularly to someone who's just started out and wants JavaScript to be their first language. Okay, so in this first video I'm gonna talk overview of the JavaScript. I want to talk about the IDE, and I want to talk about the how to run the JavaScript file and you set up your development environment. And let's first start it out about JavaScript. Okay, so first question that I should ask, or everyone should ask, is what is JavaScript? Okay, so JavaScript is just a lightweight interpreted or just-in-time compiled programming language with first-class function. Okay, it's single-threaded dynamic language and support OOP. Okay, let's break this down. Okay, JavaScript is both compile and interpret language. Okay. First class function in their meaning is mean that function get treated like any other objects. Okay, you can pass function around, you can pass function as an argument of the function, you can return the function from the function. Okay, so that's what I mean when say first class function. Okay, it's single thread. Okay, so JavaScript by design is single thread language, not the same as C# or those Java where there are multi-thread language. What this means is that when you work in a task that take longer time to execute, okay, normally if it's in a single thread language, you need to wait that task to finish before the next task could run. Okay, so the task will get something called call stack. I can talk about that later in a separate video about how call stack works, but basically means is that every time that you run the code, right, from top to bottom, the code need to be executed sequentially. Okay, if let's say for example they got one task that is take much longer time to execute, the task below it needs to wait until that task is finished. Okay, so that might not be a problem, but in some programming language, in some application, that might be a problem because, for example, you fetch the data, call the data to the server, and then the server take much longer time to return, right? Or do something in the background that take much longer time to finish. Okay, so that's might be a problem for the other task to execute, right? So which means your program going to be stuck. Okay. So, but JavaScript also have a workaround to compensate this by design of the language as well. Okay, we will talk about that in the later videos. Okay, but like Java, C#, those are multi-threaded, which means you can just simply open another thread for some tasks that take longer time. Okay, this might be a good thing, but it's a very tricky situation as well if you do so. So it's a dynamic language, which means all you can call it is a loosely typed language. Okay, so JavaScript doesn't require you to declare a type when you declare a variable. Okay, but some other static type language like C, C++, Java, C#, those languages require you to put type when you declare a variable. Okay, so that's make sure that once you declare a variable on which a particular type, you can't change it. Okay, but with JavaScript, when you declare a variable, let's say you put number on it, okay, and later on you decided, oh, I want to change it to string, you can do that. Okay, JavaScript won't freak out. That might be a good thing, and that also be a bad thing. Okay, so simply said is that if you build an application that is quite complicated, right, you're going to have a lot of variable, you're going to have a lot of data transfer around in your application. Without a type, right, you're going to have a problem because you, in the real application, you might want to convert the type of the data from one type to another type. Okay, so without a type labeling that variable, you're going to have a problem because you're going to try to figure out what type is it. Okay, well, we can talk about the type later. That's the reason TypeScript came into place, to compensate that downside of the JavaScript itself. Okay, so next one is supported OOP. Okay, so JavaScript doesn't require you to write OOP compared to Java, C#. Okay, so OOP in this meaning is that because JavaScript have class, okay, even though we don't actually use it that much, but we have class, okay, compared to the Java and C Sharp. So Java and C Sharp force you to put everything in the class. Even a simple print statement you need to put in the class. Okay, so without a class, you will not be able to execute your code. Okay, it was by design. Now OOP is something much more than that as well. So OOP is a way we design the application, or we call design pattern. Okay, so when you build an application that is huge or that is have potential to become big, you need a way to define how you're gonna write your code. Okay, so OOP was one of the way to design your code. Okay, so OP got a lot of camps. It's a huge topic. Okay, like super deep. If you want to go into that, okay. So you just know that it's supported OOP. Okay, but you don't have to write OOP with JavaScript. Okay. So the next one is that why JavaScript? Okay. Now the first reason is that a JavaScript is easy to learn. Okay, like very easy to learn. It's got much less learning curve, which is good for someone who started out and have no prior like programming language before. Same as Python, like all those languages that have a simple syntax that you can easy to understand, right? So all the language like Java or C# can have a much more learning curve because their ecosystem is huge. You have to, particularly like with types and all that stuff, right? You need to understand deeply how type works and how to convert types around. And it's not that easy compared to the JavaScript. Okay, so now JavaScript also learn once, use everywhere. Okay, what this means is that JavaScript is almost everywhere. Okay, if you know JavaScript, you can write anything on any platform that you can imagine of. Like for example, you want to write a server application, use Node. Okay, Node.js supported that. If you want to build a mobile application, you can, use React Native. And for a web UI, which is probably where JavaScript, have the most attention, is the React, Vue, and Angular. These are all the frameworks of the JavaScript. Okay, once you know JavaScript pretty good, you can jump into the framework. Okay, which framework? It's your choice. Okay. All of the framework got their pros and cons as well, and it depends on which you like. Okay, the syntax is different, but behind the scene is all the framework of JavaScript. Okay, well, of course, the most popular one is React. In the desktop application as well, if you want to build a desktop application, you can use Electron to build it. And obviously, JavaScript is high in demand because it was everywhere. Okay. All right, so let's continue. So now I want to talk about the text editor a bit because it's kind of like a big deal for beginners, that which one you choose. So text editor can be things, tools that can help you or slow you down. Okay, so let me explain. So when I first started out, I tried a lot of text editor because I just want to know which one is the best. And I can tell you right now, you don't have the best text editor. Okay, there just doesn't exist. Okay, you just need to find the one that you feel most comfortable to use. Okay, all of them got pros and cons. Okay, it's like a discussion that never ends. If you want to discuss about some text editor or which one is good, which one is bad, okay, just choose what you prefer, what you like, and just stick with it. Okay, Visual Studio Code is obviously a choice that I recommend anyone who started out to use because of the ecosystem. The community is huge. If you have a problem, someone will answer that for you. Okay, Sublime, maybe another popular choice as well, but maybe not much extension. Vim, if you are kind of like old school, enthusiastic, and why not give it a go. I can tell you one thing about Vim is that it's gonna take you ages to config. Okay, for you to start it out to work in that IDE. But because Vim is so lightweighted, it's probably the fastest one in the market. But it also have a lot of learning curve. You need to understand key mappings and all that stuff as well. to be able to use Vim effectively. Okay, now WebStorm is another love-hate for me because it belongs to JetBrains, the companies who owns like IntelliJ or Riders and all that stuff. Now, WebStorm is not free, and it's not expensive, but still, it's not free. But because WebStorm is kind of like, I want to call it, is a full-on IDE, I would say it's really good. Like, consider working the code wise, it's really good. Okay, debugging tools, like it's a lot of stuff. And JetBrains is a company who built IDE. Okay, so obviously they put a lot of investment into it, so it's really good. Okay, but at the same time, that the marketplace is not as big as Visual Studio Code because of the less people using it. But I would recommend you to try it out if you are decided to code professionally. Okay, because if you have a chance to work with a code base that is huge, a big one, WebStorm gonna have a very good potential, helping you to write code, debugging sort of stuff. Another good thing about the WebStorm is that because it's a full-on IDE, it's got like integrated of like Git and testing, all that stuff as well. But yeah, if you have a chance, just give it a go. And that should be all. So let's jump to Visual Studio Code, and I will tell you about the extension that you need to install in order to start to working with JavaScript code. Okay. All right. So here I have the my Visual Studio open, Visual Studio Code. Sorry. So this is, I have an empty folder. Okay, called GS tutorial here. There's nothing in here. So when you open the Visual Studio Code, you come on the left hand side here. You're gonna see this icon called extension. You click on this. Okay. Now this extension is it's kind of like, so when you install the Visual Studio Code, it will come with nothing, or maybe like a field. Okay, you're gonna have to install the extension that you with the language you're gonna work with. Okay, so if you see here, like I work with C#, like .NET, so I have an extension installed that. Okay, I will point out a few things that you need to install to make your life easier. The first thing is here, JavaScript ES6 code snippets. You have to install this one. Okay, it's for the syntax of the JavaScript syntax. Okay, and the next one that you should definitely install is a live server. Okay, I will show you in a bit why you need to install this, but please install them. Okay, it's pretty handy. You might don't need this down the line. Okay, but for now it's pretty good. Prettier as well. So Prettier is a code formatter. Okay, so it's kind of like help your life easier, so you don't have to manually format all the code by yourself. You're gonna find it's very intimidating when you don't have a formatter and you have to format your code by yourself, or if you don't format it, it's gonna look like crap. Okay, so now Prettier got a default out of the box, so when you install them, it works right away. But if you want config, like a custom config just works for you. Let's say, for example, you don't like, oh, the tab was too small, you want more space, things like you can write a config code in the JSON file to tell Prettier how you want it to behave. Okay. Now I want you to point out about Prettier and the linting, something like this as well. So it's just a way that how your code editor format your code. Okay, so when you work in a project that has many developers involved, everyone will have different development environment. Okay, the problem is that if I format my code on my computer and you format your code on your computer, it's gonna look different. Okay, regardless of whatever it is, it might be the same if we both use default one, but most of the time it will be different. Okay, not to mention other people using different text editor as well. But Prettier allow you to create a config file that doesn't matter who works on that project, everyone will have the same config. Okay, So that's one thing I want you to keep in mind because it's pretty important. And I think that is pretty much that you need. That's it. Now this kind of stuff you probably don't need them if you're not gonna work with like a particular language like Python, like something like that. You probably don't gonna need them, right? So that's it. That's all you need. And if you click on here, the Explorer here, this is where we're gonna work. Okay. So now I want to tell you something about how you would want to run the JavaScript code. There's a few ways for you to run it. The first way, I show you the first way first, okay? The first way is if I create a file called index.js, okay? Now, I would write a simple console log, okay? Now, a simple console log, right? Now, the first way to run this is to use a terminal, okay? I will open my terminal up here, okay? As you can see, let me clear this, okay? Now, the first way to run JavaScript code is to use Node, okay? But you have to install Node first, okay? So if I write Node-v, this is my version of Node, okay? Which I assume is the latest one, I think. Now, to run JavaScript code after you install Node, okay? You can run Node and the name of the JavaScript file, okay? Index.js, like that. See, now you execute the JavaScript code. Okay? Now, this is the first way. Now, the second way to run the JavaScript code is to use a browser, okay? But now for you to run on a browser, you're gonna need an HTML file, right? So I'm gonna create a new HTML file like this. Now, I will need a template. So to do that, you press exclamation mark on the HTML file, press tab. It's gonna generate a template, HTML template for you. Okay, it's gonna look like this. This is called emit. Okay. Now I want to import, to run that, I want to import JavaScript file into the HTML file first, right? We use the script tag like this. Okay. Now script tag gonna have a source, okay, and I can type index.js. Now I have import JavaScript file into the HTML file. Okay. Now to open this file, you remember the live server that I asked you to install? So once you install that, you will see this one, open with live server. Okay, you click on this. Okay, my one is open another browser, but I'm gonna paste it in this browser. Okay, enter. All right, now you see this hello. It's come from here. Okay, if you inspect this URL, so this is your port, this is your local host. 5500 is your port. Okay, it's a port that VS Code used to run it. Okay, and that's the name of the file. Okay, so now because we open with live server, okay, if you change anything in here, let's say I want to have another console log, I press save. The change should reflect on this console. Save that. You see, it's still hello. Now this console here, if you don't have it, you can press in Chrome. You can press Control Shift J on Windows, right? It's gonna toggle that console. Now I want to talk a bit about this console. So whatever you write console is gonna print out here. Console log, which means you can log anything here. Okay, it's gonna print out here. It could be a variable. It could be array, data, object, whatever it is. It's gonna print out here. Now these tabs here is pretty useful. So elements here shows you the elements of the HTML on the browser, right? So basically it is this one that we just created, but it's empty. There's nothing here. Okay, it's nothing here, right? It's nothing here. So the console is what I just mentioned, and there are a few that is pretty handy one. An application you might use later on when you get a bit more advanced is you have cookies, you have local storage to save some, tokens, things like that. And you also have network. Okay, so when you work with fetching the data, you will have to see how the network responds to your request. So this is where you come, okay, where you come to check when you see a network. Is it a success? Is that fail? What's the code and some of that stuff. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and another way to run the JavaScript code. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, you can run it in the browser, like directly in the browser, in the console. For example, I write console.log here and say hello. Press enter. You see, it's got hello here. Now, Chrome and other type of browser like Safari or Edge, things like that, will come with the it's called JavaScript engine. So Chrome calls it V8. It's a way that it allows you to execute a JavaScript in the browser directly. But now you can also do like 1+1 maybe, like this is return to. You can type any JavaScript code in here and it works. But things come a bit tricky when you have to write a large chunk of code, because it's gonna look very messy. Okay, so I would suggest you to stick with the HTML tag and HTML file, sorry, and the JavaScript code, because every time that you save the JavaScript file, it's going to be auto reloaded, so you don't have to type the command or whatsoever. But if you don't want to, well, you can use terminal to execute them by Node as well. That also works. Just choose which one that you prefer. Okay, and I think that's all for these videos. And the next one, the next video I'm going to talk about the grammar and types. And that should be all for this video. Thank you guys, and see you in the next one.